Just under half an hour until Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana was expected to deliver his budget speech. Let's go back to the parliamentary precinct where my colleague Nompumelelo Siziba is stationed. A very good afternoon to Nompumelelo. Take us through what's happening where you are.
Instructions. He leads from the front, he mobilizes, he organizes with all of us. Now fighters who have arrived here in this symbol of colonialism. We arrived here in this symbol of imperialism. You can see that we are even sitting under the shade of a colonial mandra called Louis Botha. In a so-called democratic South Africa, we still have a statue of Louis Botha, which is unacceptable, which is
have policy that's really relevant to them and their lives. But anyway, that aside, of course we know that in the run-up to the minister's finance, his budget speech at 2 o'clock, we know that there's a lot of anticipation, and one of the areas is the alcohol industry campaigning for some sort of slack to be cut towards them in the form of stabilizing excise duties. We know that in the past that this industry was badly affected by stop-and-start retailing because of the COVID-19 lockdowns and so on, and the pressure that was had on the health sector. And there seems to have been some evidence that did help. These did help, but it didn't help the sector and the jobs that go with it. So I'm joined now by Fatsani Banda. She's an economist at SABC, South African Breweries, just to speak to us about this issue. Thank you very much, Fatsani, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
In essence, just tell us what you're hoping the Finance Minister might do to accommodate the industry.
Well, this is a very sobering occasion for SAB in particular, because just last year around this time we got a double inflation increase in excise, and this was during the pandemic. This was in the midst of lockdowns and heavy restrictions for our industry. So at this particular moment we are hoping and pleading with the minister to listen to our perspective, in particular to include us in the recovery story and adjust excise in line with inflation. This would give us the tax break that would allow our small, medium and micro brewers to return back to the industry.
I do apologize. One moment, Fatsani. It does look as though the EFF is handing over a memorandum of some sort to a government official. So that is happened. I do apologize. So the Finance Minister, Enoch Godongwana, is beginning to enter the parliamentary building he's walking towards with his entourage. Unfortunately, I can't see the visuals very well, but this is a traditional thing that he and his entourage would do just ahead of his delivering the budget speech. Of course, it's his maiden speech to be delivered at exactly 2 p.m. He no doubt is flanked by the likes of the SARS Commissioner, Mr. Kiswita, and also the DG there, Dondo Mokajane, and other finance sector or finance department members who are flanking him. Of course, we are heavily anticipating his speech. And just onto our conversation, I'm sorry, Fatsani, to disturb you. So you were saying essentially what you're looking for from the minister.
So what we're looking for is the beer industry, and as SAB in particular, as an in-line with inflation adjustment. Last year we got an above inflation excise adjustment that was almost double the rate of inflation, and this was during the pandemic where we had lots of restrictions and we were faced by a lot of COVID regulations that affected our business. We want to be part of the recovery story that the government has put on the table as policy, but we can only do that with economic and tax relief, and we're saying excise in particular affects our industry, affects our beer value chain, and that would help us.
Okay, let me interject there. Now I can see that indeed the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana is walking right in front of us. He is flanked by his entourage, as I mentioned earlier, and I can see the SARS Commissioner there, Mr. Edward Kiswita, his DG, Dondo Mokajane, and lots of other officials that are sending him through to the halls, the chambers where he will be delivering his maiden speech at exactly 2 o'clock. o'clock. All right. And let's just quickly wrap up before we run out of time, Fatsani. So you're expecting the minister, obviously, to make some sort of intervention. But of course, as I said earlier in the introduction, there was some evidence to show that a lack of alcohol intake was beneficial to the health sector and to the emergency services and so on and so forth. And therefore, there's likely to be not that much sympathy for your sector, given the fact that there are these extraneous negative issues that come with taking alcohol. And of course, that's not your fault, but it is, the fact of the matter, it is what it is.
Our perspective is that the pandemic is reaching at a point where we're more certain about where it's going. And you can see that the government's put more concretely on the table the recovery plan. And with that, they have put in place economic and tax relief and very particular and directed industry intervention. We want to be part of that conversation in spite of the perception that we can only participate in a harmful consumption way. That is not true. I think the beer industry and SABC in particular have large economic and job multipliers. We have sustained 250,000 livelihoods in our value chain, and in a country where unemployment is so high, our growth has been persistently low. I think it would be a misconception to really be punitive in terms of excise and not give us a tax relief in terms of excise this time around by giving us above inflation excise increase. So that's our position, and we hope the government does think about that in line with the budget.
Thanks, Fatsani. Fatsani Banda, she's an economist at SAB. And of course, it's not just about the negative impacts of alcohol. It is a positive industry in the sense that it creates so many jobs and supports so many livelihoods. And those companies and those individuals who work within the industry pay taxes as well. So everything is about a balance. Life is about balance. That's all we have for you for now.